Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Oh my goodness! I got double, like quadruple fingers.
Yeah,
I got a little shimmy, a little dance. Oh, Dan, Kent. I'm on vacation.
Are you? Wait a minute. Are you technically still on vacation?
Well, yeah, because we have. So here's the thing. I came back for service yesterday because, I wanted to hear you preach. I mean, yes, I did want to hear you preach, but I was hosting. So yes. I came for service yesterday, because we're off today and tomorrow. And so technically my first day back is Wednesday. So
okay. Well,
still in vacay mode, obviously. My computer is certainly in vacay mode because it wasn't wanting to do anything today. Yeah. So if I'm glitchy, I blame that.
Yeah. Well, this will be an easy episode because it's easy to do the sermon because it was my sermon. That's and then right. I also have a story to share that I left out of my graduation story. It's like a whole part. So
you did. Okay. Yes. So I definitely cannot wait because you said something about almost dying or something. So
yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So I definitely want to hear that. But first, we have some business to take care of because I was gone and you did the show for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And I want to let you know, I got a complaint in the suggestion box.
Oh, really? Okay. They wanted LeBron.
I got a complaint from a guy who said you would not let him rest in peace.
Oh, yes.
You summoned him from the afterlife and you used him as a pawn on this show.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had technical difficulties, but, boy, I tell you what, though, Shawna, if that would have worked, we would have made international news. The MuseCast would have gone to a whole new level. So
it would have,
People would be talking about, you know what they would say? People would say, Joe Rogan who? That's what they would say, So
I kind of hope they say that already. However. Okay, well, good job. Okay, I'm gonna take off my sunglasses now. I'm gonna be business-like.
That's right.
There we go.
Time
to get serious. Thank you for holding it down while I was on vacation. I am not one of those that I think many people, like when they're on vacation, if they're at home at any point in their vacation, they wisely use that time to get stuff done, like around the house or whatever, projects or whatever. And no, I did not. I didn't do one thing I didn't want to do. So
Good for you.
So I came in to do MuseCast with you today, and my office is a wreck. My desk is a wreck. My computer was like, "Who are you?" I didn't want to connect to the internet. So it's kind of a hot mess here. But thankfully, we still have a few more days to get back in. So I say all that to say, Dan Kent, awesome job yesterday. Cannot wait to hear more. But you're gonna have to ease me back in today because
okay, all right, sounds good.
It's a little rough going over here.
Sounds good. So should I do the summary then?
Yeah, let's do this. Wait, right. Are you doing good? Are you feeling good?
I feel. Hey, you know what? It's really hot, and I'm really excited because I broke down and I got a little window AC unit for my office. And that because otherwise I can't get anything done because everything sticks to your skin and everything. And you try to write a note and you end up walking around with a note attached to you someplace because of the humidity. And so finally I got a little AC unit so I can be productive in here. And that allows me to shut my office door. Barbara can enjoy the sauna that is Maplewood, Minnesota right now. And she only gets a few weeks of this type of weather and she loves it. So this is a win-win here. And that's great. However, I can't have it on during MuseCast. Your AC is broken. So yeah, this is going to have to be a snappy episode. Yeah. Otherwise
it's going to be just go. Yeah.
Right.
You will see me slowly melting before your very eyes.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to get after it.
Yeah. Did you ever remember the movie Airplane when he's like trying to land the plane and it's just like dripping down. It's classic.
Yes.
So
that's it, sir. Okay,
well,
so
how about if I
want your summary?
Yeah, let's do it. I kind of dumped all of this stuff from my brain after yesterday because it's how hard it is to put together a sermon, and you just think about it so much. And part of the joy of finishing the sermon is that you don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
So in looking at my notes, apparently what I did a sermon on was Jesus a good teacher? And really what I was looking at is one of the things that people say when they don't believe in God, but they also want to be complimentary to Christians. And also Jesus just has this undeniable appeal. And there's a reason why every major world religion other than Christianity somehow accounts for Jesus within their own religion. And Jesus is the only figure that other religions seem to care about. And I think that there's something weird about that. And what that does is that compels, I think, a lot of people to say, well, Jesus was he's not God, he's just a good moral teacher. And I agree with C.S. Lewis that you can't say that. When you actually look at what Jesus talked about and the things that he said, just a good moral teacher doesn't seem to make sense, because he said a lot of crazy things, and you can't cut the crazy stuff out of Jesus's teaching and just take the things that you like, because the things that we like tend to depend on the crazy things that he said. Otherwise, they don't make sense on their own. And so what I argued is that this idea that Jesus is just a good moral teacher doesn't ultimately work, and eventually it collapses in on itself. But really, that was just the beginning, because I really wanted to turn this on its head and show a more important question is, are we good students? And I confessed my own kind of history of being a poor student. And I shared my favorite story, which is how I graduated from high school with a 1.3 GPA, D, which is a D minus, D for Dan. And
wait, I have to interrupt you, and I'm sorry. This is poor MuseCast taste. However,
that's all right.
To those listening, put in the chat if any of you are surprised that Dan's story weighed heavily upon his consumption of chocolate. I mean, it was like, of course, the Hershey's, the Reese's Pieces cups.
Yeah, Reese's peanut butter cups. Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Reese's peanut butter cups. Of course, they were the main character in that story.
Well, it's just so funny too, because it was my weightlifting class. It's a health class.
I know.
That's what's like, maybe if it was like, economics or something, you could see it, but the whole thing, that's why I love the story so much. So basically I skipped my weightlifting class, but I did sell the most Reese's peanut butter cups. And so he gave me a D minus, and by sell the most Reese's peanut butter cups, I ate them all and I had to pay for it. And so, but that's what gave me the D minus, which allowed me to graduate. And so I wasn't always a good student, but then I became a good student because I sort of fell in love with learning once I started to get some of these bigger philosophical questions answered. And that just sort of, I'll be honest, this part of the sermon was a little loosey-goosey. I really was trying to get this story in there somehow, partly. But I think how it did apply is that it showed the importance of the types of questions we ask when we are a student. And so I just wondered how does that relate to how we view Jesus as a teacher? And I didn't say this in the sermon, but one of the things that I was thinking as I was researching this is like, I think most people want to say that Jesus was a good teacher. And when you look at secular people who say, well, Jesus is just a good moral teacher, well, then why is nobody living out his teaching? I mean, if you point to any other teacher in the world where nobody does what they say, you would never say that they're a good teacher. But for Jesus, for some reason, who's teaching to turn the other cheek and to love your neighbor and to welcome the immigrant and all that kind of stuff, suddenly that, even though nobody does it, that's good teaching. It's so weird. And so I really wanted to look more carefully at that. And as I was going through the sermon, I was looking at this encounter with Jesus and the rich young man. And it really struck me how the rich young man, he asks Jesus, and this comes right after Jesus welcomes the children into his lap, and he blesses the children, and the children want to be with Jesus, so much so that the disciples are trying to restrain these kids, and he's like, no, let the kids come to me. This is how you're supposed to receive the kingdom. And then the very next encounter that Jesus has is the exact opposite of somebody who is not just simply receiving the kingdom, but is trying to secure himself in what I call Disneyland, this kind of this place. He wants to make sure he's going to be in the good place. And he doesn't recognize that Jesus is God incarnate right in front of him. And he's not content with just being with God. He wants to make sure he gets his reward. And then I just talked about how it's interesting, like when Jesus responds to him, he responds to him with like this, why do you call me good? And it's a weird response, because the question that the rich young man asked is not, it's a fine question. And it's, we're all curious about that. But the fact that he responds with this, like his personal dignity was in question, I think suggests that Jesus was trying to get the man, kind of like a hint kind of thing, to say, remember, you are with God here. Is this really the question you want to ask? Is this really what you want to be spending your time with God on? And unfortunately, the rich young man did not seem to get it. And then I just noticed that I really loved how Mark wrote it, where Jesus looks at the rich young man and loves him. And I just think what that means is that whatever is happening, whatever is wrong in this encounter, God wants the rich young man's presence. It seems like the rich young man has not prioritized God's presence. And so, in other words, what I think that says is that whatever barriers exist between the rich young man and God, it comes from the rich young man, not from God. And the way I reworded that, because I like thinking of it this way. Whatever games exist between humans and God, we are the ones who create the games that we play with God. And that's just very helpful for me. And then I just left with the sermon with a couple kind of points on, how to begin to think more properly about Jesus as teacher, and to cultivate a desire to seek God just for the sake of being with God, like the little children, not to manipulate the situation to make sure you get your reward or whatever. And then the second point is, basically the Woodland Hills tagline, learning to love together. Find a community of people who can go deep and think deeper about things, and to help you wrestle and help you get beneath the facades that we all have, so that we can get in touch with who we really are, and start asking questions from that more authentic space. I think there's probably a couple other things there too, but that's basically the gist of the sermon. Overall, how did you think I did? Was it better than a D-?
Yes, it was
Good.
better than a D- indeed. It was not a Dan-.
Good.
It was much better than that. And this is what I feel like I always say this to you after you preach, is that I always feel like I see something from a different perspective whenever you teach. And that is a gift. And so again, I thank you for that. I can honestly say, as I've the many times have heard and read through those passages of the rich young ruler, it's always about, he couldn't give up his wealth, and that's really sad for him. I love that you challenged us to see that just slightly differently. The question that he was asking the wrong question, and he didn't recognize this opportunity before him. And just the way that you were vulnerable and pointed out how reading that the part of the verse where it said that Jesus looked at him and loved the man, like how that touched you, because that is something that I think many times I've just glossed over. But what that spoke to me is regardless of whatever chaos we are in, however misguided we are, whatever our intent or our motives, Jesus looks at us and he's like, I love this person and I want interaction with this person. And we can be bozos, man. Like we can just be so daft, but he just looks at us and he's like, I really love you. Yeah. And I also love that you held out hope, that wasn't the end for that young man, that was a beginning of the Holy Spirit doing a work, because we don't know. Again, I feel like we always say on the MuseCast, we can never put God's creativity in a box. And so we can think we know the end of the story, but we don't know.
Yeah.
And I too believe that that was the start of something and not the end of opportunity for him. So yeah, it was really good. And then you kept talking about the games that we play. So I do want you to like lean into that a little bit, talk more about that. I know there's a story that you have to share with us, and I'm certain there are maybe a couple of points that you had to shave off. So I'm going to say, take it away, sir.
Yeah. So here, how about this? How about if I will talk a little bit about the games we play, and then instead of a nugget, I'll do the story that I cut out. That'll be like a 4th of July special.
4th of July special. This is these are your specialty nuggets, and they're going to come in the form of a story. And I think that's perfect.
Good. Well, I'll just say, in terms of the games that we play, I mean, I didn't really think too much. I like that phrase because you could put whatever in there, but I just know that one of the things that you find in mental health, especially when you're working with people with personality disorders, is they sort of get in these psychological traps where, even though they don't like the things that they're doing and the behaviors that they're doing, and they don't like the experiences that the behaviors are leading to, there is something about it that they do like. And what psychologists call this is secondary gains. And so you'll see people, especially with I'll give you like a popular example. One of the secondary gains is and this is the point of this, isn't like, this is bad or anything like that. It's really, I'm trying to show how, like, we play these games for good reason, even though they're not good for us. And so one of the things you see is you'll see kids who have been sexually abused. They will eat a lot of food, or they'll smear their feces or something like that. And they'll do these things because if they smear their feces, that is sort of like this way of fending off their predator. It's not like they want to do that, but it has this secondary sort of benefit for them. Or you'll see kids who are sexually abused will overeat and they'll get really big because that makes them less appealing to a predator. And so a lot of times they don't want to be doing that. They don't like the consequences, but it gives them this secondary gain. And those are just two very extreme examples. But I think on a more subtle level, I think we all play games like that. And especially when you look in academia, you'd think that if you go to graduate school, that's where you start to see some of those games sort of diminish. That's just not the case. The games just amplify it as you go into graduate school. You get people who, and this is just, common human vanity, but like, people care more about being smart scholars than they actually care about the topic that they are researching, or they have like a desired kind of aesthetic that they want to present, and there's no quality kind of knowledge there. And so you get these you get people in scholarship who they end up, and there's a lot of pressure that you end up kind of producing research articles and stuff like that just because you have to, in order to be like a great scholar, and the research articles themselves aren't that good. And so there's just a lot of games like that on many different levels, romantically too. I mean, one of the things in marriage and family counseling is, as you get to know your spouse better, they have certain things that they're defensive about, and they'll do things as a way of managing their anxiety that might frustrate the other person. And one of the things that Barbara and I have talked about quite a bit is the fact that I tend to minimize dangers. I tend to minimize things. That's how I deal with anxiety, is I say it's not that big of a deal, and I'm sure I can eat my way out of this problem, whatever it is, but that's frustrating for her. And so we've had to, and that's a game that I play as a way of dealing with anxiety. Well, we have so many of those games that we play that it warps everything that we interpret. It warps everything that we see. And a big part of spiritual growth and becoming a disciple of Jesus is Jesus wants to shine his holy spotlight and just burn away as much of that false stuff, as much of those games as he can. But I think it takes time, and and it hurts. I mean, when he says in Luke 9 that if you want to be my disciple, you have to deny yourself daily. That's part of what that is. It's like, I want to minimize. I want to just eat until I hurt. I want to do all these things. That's if it's coming from a place of falseness, if it's coming from a place of chicanery or playing games or looking for secondary gains, I think that God wants us to deny that. God wants to get better at pushing back against that. Not that we're going to be perfect, but at least we're aware of it and we work toward it. And so that's, that's kind of a loosey-goosey discussion of games that we play. And it's a bigger topic than I could really get into. And so yeah, off the cuff though, that's what I would say.
I like it. Thank you for diving into that a little bit. All right. I have a feeling that we're going to see a live example of what you were talking about in the fact that you minimize things. It's no big deal. Yeah. Because I can see it, Dan. And if I hear like you said something about like where you almost died, I like in my brain, yes. I can picture you being like, this is no biggie. I got this. So I'm wondering if we're just going to see a little hint of that in the story you're about to tell us.
Your intuitions are spot on. And my minimizing can mix with my apathy, and then it's a really potent combination. So so here I am. I get
wait. Did I just get an order? Did you have any? Oh, hi Finn.
Yay.
Did you have a couple of points? Because remember, the story's going to be the nugget. So I maybe jumped
the story in. Let's go with the story.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's do it. Okay.
Mostly because my AC is off and I'm getting sweaty, and
my gosh. I'm yeah.
Good.
It's warm. Okay.
We'll get it. So here's what happened. And I unfolded my grade report card, and I see this F, and it literally just felt like all of the vitality of my spirit just started getting sucked out toward that red glowing F. And my friend Brian Kepler, he probably noticed my trauma. He saw it on my face, I'm sure, because he comes over. He's like, what the heck is wrong? And I told him all about it. And we're both like, just like you and I right now, we're just like sweating because it's like 100 degrees out and we're in black and the sun is beating down on us. And he's trying to cheer me up. So he's like, you know what? We got like 6 hours before the actual ceremony. Let's go find Dougie. He was our boss. We worked at this bowling alley nightclub called Burnsville Bowl and Hot Shots. And Dougie was our manager. And he had this speedboat, and he was always out on Prior Lake. And he would always have bartenders and cocktail waitresses out there. And we would go water skiing and kneeboarding and stuff like that. And it was just a hoot, it was just a riot. And so Brian, he's a good therapist. He knows what I need. He's like, yeah, I think we need Dougie. I think we need to find that boat, get you out on some water skis, and that'll cheer you right up. And I'm like, all right, let's go do it. So we go out to Prior Lake, and we're at the little public beach, and we're looking across the lake. We're looking for Dougie's boat. And sure enough, there it is on the other side of the lake, this little baby blue boat going back and forth, and somebody's water skiing behind it. And so we're like, Doug, we're yelling, and there's no chance Doug could hear us from the other side of Prior Lake. And so Brian said, I bet we could swim across. And I was young. I was young. I had feelings of immortality, and plus I didn't really care because I was going to fail high school and my life was over and all of that. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we jump in the water and we start swimming, and we're trudging along. And I didn't realize that, the water really makes your shirt and stuff like really heavy. So at some point I took that off and just left it in the water. I'm like going across, and we get over halfway, and I'm a better swimmer than Brian. So I'm like 10, 20 yards ahead of him. We're over halfway. The waves are starting to break the other way, and Brian starts yelling for help. because his legs started cramping up and they wouldn't move. And so he was like yelling for help, and I'm too far away from him to help him. And so he starts going under and coming up, and I couldn't get there. So I start yelling for help too. And I was able to get this jet skier to come by. I'm like, hey, my friend I think he's drowning. And this guy in the jet ski is like, okay, well, where is he? And I'm like looking at the water, and there he is. He comes up one more time, and he yells for help. And so the jet skier goes over there, grabs him, and brings him all the way back to shore. So I'm out there waiting, and just assuming that the jet skier is going to come back out for me. He didn't come back. He just left me there. So I'm out there, like a discarded bobber, just like, this is my life now. And so finally I'm like, all right, I got
a buoy out there in Prior
totally
Lake.
That's right. And you know what, with a 1.3 GPA, a buoy is a respectable thing to become. That's all I'm saying.
That's
so
right.
So I had to swim all the way back, and it was a long swim. And so we never got to Dougie's boat that day, and Brian almost died. And then we went and we got all cleaned up and got ready for the ceremony. And so that all happened in the middle of the graduation story. So yeah, it was pretty wild.
Oh my word. So kids, those listening in at home, Dougie is not the answer. Dougie is not the answer.
No.
Maybe don't follow Brian thinking you can swim across the lake.
I want the record to show that I would have made it. I would have made it.
That's right.
So
because you skipped all those weightlifting classes, so you weren't weighed down by extra muscle mass.
Yeah.
And Dan had a short stint as a buoy back in his teenage years. So add that to your bingo card.
That's right.
Well, Dan, I'm glad you did not perish on that day. I'm glad you made it back to shore safely. I'm glad that you graduated and you went on to become a better student because you were actually reading and studying things that matter to you. So
that's right.
Thank you for all of that. And thank you all for tuning in. And that is our show for today.
That is it.
We will see you Tuesday, 4 p.m. In the chat. Also via podcast. If you can't watch, you can listen that way and keep coming. You don't want to miss this. So you got to keep coming back every Tuesday to check out these shenanigans. He's Dan Kent. I'm Shawna Boren. We are so thankful for you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
See you later.